Welcome back. Urban Survival, Chapter 2 Shelter. Now, I know that it's taken us a long time to get here, and you would think, if you're talking about homelessness, that we would have talked about shelter a long time before this. But like I said in the beginning, this, we'll call it a curriculum, is step tiered. Everything builds on everything else. So, I know this took a while. 2 lessons and 2 chapters into this lesson. Now we're here. Coffee's good. So, let's talk about shelter. The very first thing that you want to do, if at all possible, is to find some high ground to make your camp. So we're going to call your shelter your camp. That's basically what it is. Know that everything is temporary. Everything is impermanent. In regard to that, a thing is not beautiful because it lasts. And while being homeless can suck, you can have a beautiful shelter. You can have a place that you feel is safe and secure, and a place that you feel comfortable in. Do I prefer my campsite to an apartment? No. Do I feel comfortable there? Oh yeah, very much. No one knows where I am. I don't stick out. I feel safe. We'll get to that. High ground. There's a lot of ways you could do it. Like, you could go ultra high ground and do a treehouse if you wanted to. You have to be careful about how invasive to your environment you are. You can't be obvious. You shouldn't trespass. It's going to be difficult not to do that. I understand. But high ground is better. We're just speaking on terms of fighting against nature. Mostly it's water. But tactically speaking, the high ground is preferable. I like hammocks. I enjoy rafters. I'm afraid of heights. That doesn't stop me from getting up high. High ground is important. So, be discreet. Use natural camouflage. Now, obviously, we're talking about an urban setting. Natural camouflage doesn't necessarily mean of nature. If you choose a spot behind a bridge embankment that has a whole bunch of rocks and plywood, you can use that to your advantage to help you camouflage without making it seem like your structure is out of place. Again, structure I use loosely. Every state and town has laws as far as what structures can be. I'm not just talking about code, but that too. The last thing you want is to get in trouble when you're outdoors. It makes it a lot harder to go forward because then there's legal issues, and you don't want that. I've mentioned before, stay legal. It's not just for your record, it's for your peace of mind, it's for your psychology, and we'll touch base on that later in this lesson. Not in this chapter, but later in this lesson, we're going to go back to mental health as it pertains to being in an urban environment. But definitely you want the high ground. Definitely you don't want things that will stand out. So if you're around gray concrete, maybe a pink roof isn't the best way to go. you get it. If at all possible, see if you can take advantage of a naturally occurring or create some kind of non-invasive water runoff. It's going to be rain. It's going to be water. Sometimes it's going to be bad. It only takes one time of soaking your stuff before it starts to mildew and mold. And then it's useless. And then you have to get rid of it. Mold is not good for your lungs. It's not good for your health. Keeping things dry is paramount. We'll cover that in a later chapter also. But if you can, keep yourself what would be upstream if there was a torrential downpour. Again, high ground covers that, but there's reasons for it. You definitely want a sleeping bag, even in the warmer weather. If nothing else, you can use it as a ground pad to help insulate you from the ground's cold, make it less hard. I can sleep on a concrete floor using a rock as a pillow. I don't have any problem sleeping like that. It's not my preference, obviously, but I can do it. So can you. But you don't have to. If you can, 2 sleeping bags is better. One inside the other. I actually subscribe to this. I've tied the feet of my 2 sleeping bags together, one inside the other. I don't always sleep inside both bags. Usually, I sleep on top of the inner bag, and then I use the over bag as like a blanket. It's still kind of cushiony, still kind of warm. You don't overheat. I don't zip and close. I just use them blanket style. The one exception to that is I mentioned I tie the feet together. Because it's important that you keep your feet warm. So I tie those mummy style at the bottom so my feet don't stick out, but everything else can. Also, take your shoes off. I know I've said that before. When you're in for a period of time, take your shoes off. Take your socks off if you can stand it. But definitely let your feet air out and let your boots air out, or your sneakers if that's what you're choosing to go with. There's not really a wrong answer here, like we covered in the last chapter, but form follows function, and you're obviously going to have footwear. Take them off. Take care of your feet. Take care of your footwear. A tent or a fly tarp or a combination. Again, this is one of the times where I recommend 2. There's this thing called double wall insulation. You use them in windows. You use them in housing, actually. The drywall on both sides of the studs. Double wall insulation. The best case scenario is have a tent and then have another tent inside it. So I prefer a 4-man tent, and then inside it I will erect a 2-man tent, and that gives me the double wall insulation. You will not believe the difference that makes. Oh my goodness. What a difference. Like, have to sleep with the door open sometimes. Different. It's really good. Insulation. The tent by itself is not going to insulate. Even with the double wall, you really want something to help keep the warmth inside. You're not going to generate warmth inside. You can. There's ways to do that. We're talking about tents. They're very flammable. They're very susceptible to heat. And so creating a heat source inside of a tent is risky. Not just for your safety, but for your shelter also. Something to think about. Alcohol, like hand sanitizer, is it's very flammable. It's got a high alcohol percentage. That doesn't mean drink it. If it's unscented, it burns clean and you can cook with it, and it doesn't create a whole lot of heat. So if you were careful about your air circulation and your placement of a container with some like 80% methyl alcohol, you can heat your tent. It's better to insulate it and not run the risk. Things happen. It's better safe than sorry, especially when you don't have a backup. It's not like you have insurance for your tent. It's not like the insurance would cover it if they found out that you burned it down because you were trying to stay warm. You get what I'm saying. Cardboard is a really good insulator, and it's very easy to get your hands on. There's dumpsters that are dedicated to cardboard, so you don't have to worry about getting all gross in most cases. Cardboard is a very good insulator. I strongly recommend using cardboard as a base layer for the ground to separate you from the ground, especially if it's corrugated. It's a very good insulator, and it doesn't take a lot. Newspaper is also a really good insulator. It'd be harder to insulate your tent with newspaper than it would with cardboard, but it is doable, and a mixture of the two wouldn't be bad. Blankets, especially fleece. What a difference. What I did for Studio A is I covered the two-man tent with a layer of fleece blankets that I zip tied together. And then I put the fly over it. Then you had the four-man exterior shell. And that made for almost an overbearing amount of insulation. I woke up sweaty a lot of times. Even clothes. Clothes are a good insulator. If you have clothes that you're not wearing while you sleep, put them under your sleeping bag. You use them to insulate you from the ground. You could even cover it with them if they're large enough. We mentioned size order in the last chapter. That's another reason for that. My top shell is a 2X. I'm not a 2X. I'm a large. But it's there to cover more than just one layer of clothes. So it has to be a little roomier. Also, the tighter it is, the faster you'll overheat. And even though we're trying to fight cold, we want to fight heat too. There's an optimal temperature range that we exist at. Ventilation. So one mistake I've made is I've over-insulated my shelter, and that means that there's nowhere for the condensation that naturally occurs when warm air meets cold air. It condensates, and it covers every surface that the air can touch, and then everything becomes wet. And again, molding and mildewing issues, and then you potentially could lose all your stuff inside the shelter. So you want to make sure that you have ventilation. They have these, you can see through them, like mosquito netting windows where the door flaps are, even some beyond just the doors. Use those. Make sure if you're in it, you have at least one opening where air can get in and out freely. That will really, really, really help fight the condensation. It'll make a big difference. And if you're double tented, you can put one opening over on this side, and then on your interior one, you can open near it, but not right at it. So you're not letting the cold air from the outside come directly in to your interior. There's ways to do it. It takes a little practice, but it's not undoable. So if you're not using a tent, or your door is broken, your zipper busted, mosquito netting is amazing. You definitely don't want the spiders and snakes and mosquitoes for sure, and ticks. You don't want them coming in. You can use some lashings or some zip ties and some mosquito netting and create your own netting. It doesn't have to be sealed. It just has to be closed. What I did with one that I had a tent that didn't even have a door anymore, I don't know what happened. I found the tent and I took some mosquito netting and I sealed it up top and part way down on each side. And then when I would exit or enter the tent, I would tuck the bottom of the mosquito netting under the bottom of my tent, creating inaccessibility for nature. I never had a bug problem. Knock on wood. Oh, maybe this one. I never did have a bug problem. I was concerned about it a few times, but it always worked out pretty well. Mosquito netting's awesome. And if you can just find a broken tent that nobody cares about, there's going to be some mosquito netting. You can utilize that. A travel pillow. I don't mean a big pillow. I mean something small that you can stow fairly easily, but that at night you can lay your cranium on. It makes a difference, not just for your comfort, but for your airflow too. Not really thinking about stuff like that when you're sleeping, but having your head tilted up is a good idea. Also, having your feet elevated is a good idea. It's good for your circulation. It'll give you better sleep. What else we got? Oh, lighting. Yeah. So lighting is tricky, especially if you're trying to stay incognito or subtle, at least. You want to consider where you have your lighting, and you want to be aware of any ambient light that'll spill over from it. I don't keep lights in between my exterior and interior tent. I only have light sources inside the interior tent because it's so heavily covered that you really can't see, even if I have the solar charger light on, which is ridiculously bright. I almost use that for the studio lights for these recordings. You can't see, but you got to test it. You have to test it at night. Like, even if you think you're good, double check, make sure you're good, confirm it. You don't want to be caught off guard. Heat. You don't really need a lot of heat if you're well insulated. You actually just need your body heat and a little bit of fleece. You should be fine. Again, there's ways to produce heat. You can take a metal coffee can, put it on a tray, put a roll of toilet paper in the coffee can, and fill that with rubbing alcohol. That'll burn for a very long time. A very long time. You might even consider putting a shell around the coffee can so you don't accidentally touch it. It's going to be hot, and you want a way that you can suffocate it instantly so that you can put it out at a moment's notice. And be careful with any heat source that you use, anything. Be very, very mindful of where you are, what's around it, how far it is. If you're going to have an open fire, I don't mean inside the tent, you need to make sure that the overhang is clear at least 20 feet above the flame, not the ground, the flame, which is typically 5 to 10 feet higher than the ground. So if you can get a clearance of 20, 30 feet, should be okay. I recommend against above ground fires, maybe dig in and have a fire pit. You can run a hole off to the side and create a little natural bellows. Really intensify the flame. But again, the more flame you have, the more light you have. So there's a balance here. Finally, do not tap into things. I don't just mean electrical power. I mean structures. I knew a guy who did a really good thing, and he created a community underneath a bridge. He even had little apartments in there. It was all just plywood. It was all held together with wood and hinge pins. There was no tapping of the concrete. There was no drilling into the beams. Everything was gravity supported, and he was able to take it down and show that there was no invasiveness. And so he never got into any legal repercussions for it. Do not tap into structures that do not belong to you. Again, this is a legality issue, and that's important. It's good to stay legal. You'll get a lot less trouble for that. The two key things here are waterproofing, especially the roof, and ventilation. I can't stress that strongly enough. And it seems counterintuitive on a cold night to have a window open. Try it with the window closed. See what happens when you wake up. Better yet, learn from my experience and just take my word for it. You want to ventilate if you're going to insulate. You need them both. It's a balance. Be respectful of your environment. Don't be a pig. That will not only get you into trouble, but karma's a bitch. And if you're decent, karma's beautiful. Hammocks are great. They make these things called hammock tents. It's exactly what it sounds like. They're not very warm. You can make them warmer. The double sleeping bag will actually take care of almost all of that. And there's this thing called a bivy bag. Bivouacking is the military version of camping. I guess. I apologize to any of you bros and sisters that are going, bivouacking is not camping. No, it's not. I know that. But it's similar. At least you don't have to dig foxholes every 2 hours when you're camping. So it's better than bivouacking. But if you have bivouac experience, you can apply that even in an urban setting. And as ever, if you see someone who needs help, help them. You're the one who came along. That's why you saw it. You were the one that was supposed to help them. And that could mean multiple people. There could be a dozen people that come along at the same time. You all are the ones who were supposed to help, all of you. If you see it, you were the one who came along. And we all know we're supposed to help each other. We all know we're all connected. And how the hell else are we going to create a genuine community if we don't act like a genuine community? I'm just saying. And don't get discouraged. Don't lose hope. I didn't say anything about faith, but don't lose hope. It's a powerfully driving force. Hope is what keeps me sane. It's what keeps me doing this. Because I hope that by sharing my information and by everyone else participating in this channel's community, my hope is that we can all help each other. Am I being redundant? Mm-hmm. Yes, I am. In the dictionary, under redundant, it says, see recurrent or repetitive. Okay, it doesn't, but it should. Help each other. This is what we're supposed to do. This is what makes us feel the best about ourselves and about other people. Helping people, knowing other people are helping other people. We could all help each other if we just did it. Just do it. Okay. That's it. I'm sure I've gone over my 15-minute limit. Thank God I didn't make a promise about that. I've got more shout outs coming. I have 2 more that are planned. Actually, those were supposed to be the first 2 shout outs, but Doxy showed me that you guys are listening. You guys are watching. Not just the beginning of the videos. Oh, that reminds me. Thank you so much to all of you who are watching this part of the video right now. That means that you're watching it till the end. I appreciate you so much more than I can tell you. That's what's up. Doxy also showed me that you guys are listening. She did exactly what I asked you guys to do. Participate. Make this a community. So she made suggestions, offered some advice, and it was good. And that's exactly what's up. So let's keep doing that. Tell your friends. Share this with people out on the street. Let's spread the word. Let's help each other. Let's make this suck less. We can do it. Stay safe. Stay good. Help each other. And our next chapter will be EDCs, which stands for Everyday Carries. I probably will even share my bug out bag setup with you, just as an example of EDCs. Although I don't always carry my bug out bag, we'll probably spend the last portion of that chapter on the bug out bag too, because that's everything that I need for survival. It's not everything I own, but it's everything I need. Everything else is a luxury. Stay good. Stay safe. Help people. And you'll see me later.